All right. Good afternoon, good evening. I've already broken the first rule by being the person that's in between your beer and happy hour with this presentation, but I'm really excited to talk about designing Web3 experiences for diverse communities. I'm from the south side of Chicago, and myself have been the recipient of a bunch of STEM and CS and emerging technology programming as a kid to help on-ramp me into a career in technology. So this that I'm about to present to you is pretty personal to me. The slides will be available after, so let's go into it. I'm pointing this thing out here. Forward. All right, so quick agenda. We'll go through intros, some of the motivation for the talk, goals and objectives, some call to action stuff that you can do to get involved. I'd like to partner up with as many of you as are interested in helping to build out communities in your area of the world and your geography. A couple case studies, insights, and looking ahead, and then we'll wrap it up with some Q&A and resources. All right, so I mentioned I'm from Chicago. Who's been to Chicago before? Just raise your hands. We'll make this a little interactive. Got my Air Jordans on. Any Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman's fans out there? Okay. So I see my people in the middle right there. I went to school to study ECE at University of Illinois. Okay, I see you out there, UIUC. After going there, I went to the Bay Area where I've lived for about 18 years now, worked at a bunch of different companies, and now it's one of the passions that I have to try to get as many underrepresented folks into this emerging space and others to jumpstart and bootstrap their careers. Bunch of kind of places I've traveled, really excited to have been at Infracon, the first one in Punta Cana earlier this year, so thanks for the second invitation. Just round of applause for the Pocket team for putting this together. Thank you, guys. You can see my beautiful family here. They take all my disposable time and income. And on the side, outside of my main job, I actually teach at the University of Illinois and at Stanford. I teach a course called Redesigning Finance, which is we try to pull Web3 and crypto and blockchain into this design school class. So I teach design, I know engineering, and I've done a little bit of business stuff as well. All right, so some motivation for the talk. When I'm teaching, I typically am starting the talk with a little bit of history. Many students who come to Stanford or U of I or even folks in the community don't know how America, for example, got to be the way that it was with income inequality and some of the social injustice that's kind of permeating our society. So a lot of this work is most effective when you know the history and can teach the history. So these are two books that if you've not checked them out, will give a great kind of overview of the history of our financial system and how it got to be, how the winners got to be the winners and how the losers got to be the losers. And another one called The Color of Law that focuses a bunch on stuff like redlining and gentrification of communities and the programmatic, systematic way that this, our country, America, has kind of divided who gets wealth and who doesn't. So that's some of the motivation for what I'm doing when I'm offering these kind of topics to students. All right, the second thing that I motivate with is typically this, as I'm trying to get people interested in Web3 specifically. You guys have probably all seen A16Z's crypto kind of state of the state report from earlier this year. We know the internet is flawed. Some of the incentives are backwards. These are a couple of things that I think are most exciting. Property rights that Web3 gives to communities, some of the democratization that it provides and the ability for somebody to not have gone to Harvard or Stanford or some fancy school, but still have an avenue to participate. So these are a couple of things that I usually start my talks with, the history of how we got there, and then some of the upside of where we are with Web3. All right, so goals and objectives. These are some things that I've learned to prioritize when starting with younger communities, going into places where This might be the first time that this language might have been spoken to this demographic of folks. So my goals are typically to get as many jobs and project opportunities into kind of the hands of my audience as possible. I've taught folks as young as like 5 or 6 years old. Like we start with like intro to Scratch maybe, and as old as, university students up until their grandparents. So there's a story of a 77-year-old lady in East Palo Alto, California, who learned HTML and CSS and sold jewelry digitally for the first time as like a 76 or 77-year-old. So this is a very kind of wide band of opportunity that Web3 and some other technologies also provide. So the second one is kind of building the talent pipeline. If you would agree that talent within Web3 is one of the major challenges for the space moving forward, just give me a quick poll or not. I think most people agree that we need more folks in the space in order to make faster progress. Number 3, building creative confidence and establishing a growth mindset. If I step into a place like Bogota and I slacked off in Spanish as a high schooler, I'm in a brand new environment. I'm trying to figure things out. And the lowest barrier to entry is what I want to start with. And that reinforcement of what they're doing right as opposed to kind of what they don't have is where I'm usually starting. The growth mindset, there's a great book out there by a lady named Carol Dweck. She's a Stanford researcher, and it's focused on kind of expanding the possibilities by focusing on what you do have and where you are at versus where you don't. At a metacognitive level, if you focus on negatives, some of the opportunities that are right in front of you are actually, you're blinded to them. She's got that in her research. Keeping cultural context and accessibility top of mind. You'd be surprised to find out that if I offered a pair of Air Jordans to some of the students that I've taught, that's actually more beneficial than a book or an NFT or something that they don't have the context for. So a lot of what I'm doing, hackathon prizes, a lot of like the incentive and the benefit for these communities, I'm starting in their neighborhoods and where they are and working backwards into some of the primitives and some of the cool stuff of Web3, typically. And then 5, modularize, iterate on prototypes and ship at scale. There's a bunch of nonprofits and grassroots organizations who focus on kind of local empowerment of small communities of 100 to 1,000 students. One of the things that I think Web3 and crypto and blockchain technologies can do is help us to copy and paste some of these things that work locally and then take them nationally and then take them globally so that we can do kind of a cross-border type of impact. Cool. And always take pictures. This is like a decade's worth of hackathons and pictures and different things that we've been able to do over the years here. All right, let's go here. Just a couple of examples of getting involved. I actually moved to the Bay Area as somebody that didn't know anybody, no network, no community. So volunteering at Cisco Systems as a software engineer in like the networking and firewalls department is how I got started. So if any of you are like having the challenge of getting over the hump and like, where do I begin? Just raise your hand for some of the local volunteerism that's around you. It could be one-to-one, small one-to-many, or events at scale. But I've had folks that I've taught a decade or a decade and a half ago come and find a job in the tech industry and say, hey, that coffee that you had with me was super helpful. That open door policy that you said you had, when I knocked on your door and you actually answered me on LinkedIn or via email, those kind of things matter. And I'm encouraging and like calling you all with a call of action to do the same if you can. 3 examples of things that we've done pretty recently. We had some women from UAE and Dubai come for a design jam at the Stanford D School here. We talked about kind of blockchain, IoT, technology application in kind of a public sector context. Second thing was kind of marrying Web3 with AI and ML technology. We did a Deep Racer kind of raceway event. Meta hosted us for that one a little over a year ago. And then content moderation and trust and safety team over at Twitch had students here in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, and we talked about what it would take to create spaces that are more safe for 18-year-olds and less. So like, I'm the father of 3 children. I have a lot of concern about cyberbullying and a bunch of like what's present in the space. So I think we've got a lot of work to do there, and to the extent that an event can help us start the conversation, we've done a couple of these now. All right, let's go to the next one. A couple of live case studies, actually. So in the actual deck that you'll get the URL kind of QR code to, if you click these links, these are active projects that are going on right now. The Disruption Lab is on the campus of the University of Illinois, and it's a student-run group that's led by some faculty advisors that take on projects for ECE and CS students to actually do. So we've recently agreed to tokenize real estate in Washington, D.C., and have the students build a platform for distributing tokens to tenants that take care of the properties that they're renting from the landlords. We've got a class that I do at U of I as well called Introduction to Social Design, where we start with the world challenges like poverty, violence, education, kind of wealth inequality, and build backwards, talking about design, thinking fundamentals, and then also human-centered design and prototyping solutions over the course of a semester in order to push those out into the world. And we do a demo day at the end of the 16 weeks. At Stanford, I actually taught a course called Community College, which is the first one that I taught during COVID. Typically, 25 or so students will join a Stanford class, and you teach in person. Because we did it in COVID, I actually was teaching over Zoom, and I had the thought that it'd be cool to extend kind of the community of folks that this content would be relevant for. So we actually ended up creating this Stanford Community College Instagram page, and I said, I got in trouble with the PR people at Stanford for calling it Stanford Community College on IG, but within 1 week, we had 1,000 people raise their hands and say, hey, if I could audit this course about psychological safety and building communities from the ground up, I would like to be a part of that for no credit, basically. So this was a prototype and an experiment where we kind of built a community from nothing. And now there's basically a YouTube channel with about 50 one-on-one interviews from folks that I can point students to who are working professionals in the Web3 technology and business space. And the idea that all of this was kind of born out of experimentation is one of the things as designers that we're always leaning into. So, you know, whatever alma mater you came from, if you happen to get the chance to like open up something on social media or do something and roll the dice with an experiment, it actually turned out pretty positive for me. This is a clickable link for the Redesigning Finance work that we've done. It started in 2018 after the Paradise wildfires in California. Fun fact, only 60% of anyone whose houses were burned down in those wildfires in California received any compensation from their insurance company. So this Redesigning Finance course was actually built out of a question of how we might redesign the reinsurance industry and the insurance industry to be more equal and to be more impactful and beneficial for claimants when the next Hurricane Katrina comes or when the next, wildfire comes to that area in California. So this class has been alive for about 5 years now. And then UC Berkeley, I went there for an MBA school, doing some advisor stuff for their accelerator programs and their blockchain at Berkeley Club. Cool. And then we've got a couple books. We just launched a little bit of publishing, so we'll pass them around if you wanted to just flip through this creative hustle book. Some of the stories that I'm telling here, we actually had Stanford sign on to actually publish a book that was capturing some of the stories of folks that have supported it over the last decade or so. So it can make its way around, and I'll collect them afterwards. But this launched actually last week. Let me talk about Street Code Academy, whose mission is to teach folks three things: to hack, to hustle, and to design. And we offer free education to Santa Clara and San Mateo County folks that typically can't afford kind of extra. So they hang out at the Boys and Girls Club. They hang out at kind of nonprofit after-school programs. And we thought, since we live in the heart of Silicon Valley, that it would be super cool to be able to actually offer them experiences and project opportunities and to build a portfolio as a 12-year-old that will help you maybe as an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old be able to use that as a resume for a job at one of the Web3 companies that are being built and formed right now. So these are all, that last slide and this slide are some case studies of different things that we've done in the past. And stuff that we're really proud of, work that's been going on for the last 10 years just about. All right, so insights and looking ahead, some things that I've learned. If what you're offering is not fun, then you're not done. I used to do like improv, hip hop, like way back in the day. And to make this fun, I thought, if I can get a standing ovation after 60 seconds, I will rap you guys a hip hop verse. Anybody interested? All right. So I'm gonna try to make Infracon Day history by being the first person to do a hip hop line. So this is going a decade back to when I used to be in a hip hop band. I used to start it off and say, hey, I'm Brandon Timothy, friend of the metaphors, user of the similes. I translate struggle into symphony vividly. I use words and I put them together to make Infracon history. Many thanks for the ears that you've given me. Appreciate the love and the positive energy. I got to thank the Lord for helping me take flight, and big ups to Pocket for letting me use the mic. I'm a nerd by day, musician by night. I'm trying to change some lives with words that I write. I'm from the south side of the shy land of Barack, White Sox, and do or die. I won't keep y'all long, but I had to do my thing on the song while my whole peeps here played along. I borrowed from the maker of the superstar, probably the best Web3 rapper that y'all have heard thus far. How about that? So I think I made history, hopefully. I'll get through these last insights and then we'll wrap it up. Near-term incentives matter to underrepresented builders. So when I talk about like Jordans and like stuff that will help a kid to not take that job at finish line or go work at McDonald's over the summer. If you're building experiences, you're going to make sure that you offer something that actually matters to them and not what you think you would like if you were their age. Teaching the past, history, we went over this, is very helpful in building the future. Designing kind of psychologically safe spaces for communities to tell their stories is key. And that ties into this last one, nothing about us without us. Communities of color specifically like really hate it when big corporate interests kind of go in and then come out and like retell the story after having just done like 5 minutes of research or like 2 seconds of actually building a relationship. So in a lot of what we're doing, instead of having students go to Netflix or go to Tesla or go to the tech company, we make the employees of the tech company actually come to the neighborhood where the students live so that they can see the community centers, they can see the houses, they can see kind of how the students' context and their backgrounds have come together to help them like be who they are. So very important, nothing about us without us. 3 design frameworks that I'll leave you with. How might we come into asking very large questions is speculative design. Always starts with a big how might we question. I used to think, but now I think ways to engage young people after like a quick exercise or experiment that you might have done, way to get good feedback out of them. And then last, I like, I wish, and I wonder. When I was doing my Zoom teaching, I would have students actually chat in using these 3 frameworks, I like, I wish, and I wonder, so that I'm engaging them while they're paying attention to their fellow peers, making presentations and making points. So these are a couple things that I've used in the past that you might be able to put in your back pocket and use with young folks as well. Thrown some like ways to get in touch with me, things that I'm reading, YouTube, the list of all the different conversations that we've had. This is all my stuff. I think that's about it. Mario says we're done. We got all the points and the coins. And that's all of my time. Thank you guys so much for playing along. And If you QR code this deck, there's actually a little bit of a primer for design thinking, like a couple slides extra, just about design thinking if you wanted to check that out later on. So that's all that I got. Thank you guys so much.